Hi guys, and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria, and this is my villain origin story. I have tried to film this video. This is the third time. This will make thrice that I have tried to film this bleeding October wrap-up, and what cheeses me off is the first time I filmed it was in November. It was the end of November, and so it was actually gonna come out in November, the month after, you know, it's due. And now it's freaking, what is it, December 14th or something? Oh, man. So I filmed the bloody thing, and I just got a new mic. Like, it's a brand new mic, because I was tired of the, you know, whatever. I talked about the mic in the last video, I think. Anyway, and so I'm used to having a stupid lapel thing, and so I recorded it, and about partway through, like, freaking 3/4 of the way through, I was like, why are the little volume, not dials, but I don't know, bars. Why are they only going up to like halfway? And I thought it was weird. So I stood up and I checked to make sure my mic was on. I'm like, is my mic not on? Like, have I just been talking to this camera? My mic was on. So I finished it and downloaded the footage of my computer, and my mic was on. It's just, it wasn't plugged into the camera. So, idiot. So that was annoying, and that's, it's demoralizing. So I left it like a week. I'm like, I ain't filming this stupid thing again. I've talked about these stupid books already, and I don't want to talk about them again. And so finally, my wife was like, you can do it. And so I went in there, and I did it again. I made sure the mic was plugged in. I wrote myself a little note. It says, is the mic plugged in? Is the mic on? I did that. Mic was plugged in. Mic was on. Filmed the whole bleeding thing. Well, right at the end, the last book I was talking about. My battery died because it took forever to set up, and it was just sitting here on. And so when I went to change the battery and put it in, I looked, and the recording space left was 2 hours and 44 minutes, which is what I start with on an empty SD card. And I was like, no. And so I, went to preview, and there is nothing to preview. So I plugged in my mic, I turned my mic on, and I did not hit record. So I lost it again. And then I decided to, destroy the world, because I'm a supervillain now. And so I've left that for a week. It's just, man, y'all know. You content creators, you guys know. You don't want to frickin' do it again once you've recorded something. And so that, with being exam season, it's just been really challenging to get videos out. So I apologize that it's been forever, and there's something I'm going to work on more in the new year, is trying to find a balance between, whatever. So anyway, it's my third time trying to film this bleeding thing. If it's fast, I'm sorry. This is why. I'm tired of talking about these dang books. Like, I want to put them to bed and move it along. So, without wasting any more bloody time, let's get down to business. Let's talk about these stinging books that I read in stinging October. So in October, I read six books. Yeah, I read / listened to 6 books. It comes to about like 2,500 pages or so. And of those six books, one was a 3-star, one was a 3.5-star, one was a 4-star, and then 3 5-star books. So it wasn't quite a 5-star strumpet month. I wasn't quite a 5-star strumpet this month. More like a 5-star reasonably priced escort. So 3 5-stars is nothing to shake a fist at. But, it's not like normal where it's like every book was a 5-star and then one was not really. That 2,500 pages is pretty good, but I could only do that with the help of audiobooks, which, since I listened to Winter King, I discovered a love for certain kinds of audiobooks that I can listen to on my commute, and so that has kind of increased my pages read quota. So let's go ahead and get this started. It's going to go from lowest star rating all the way up to my favorite book of the month, and right before my favorite book, I'll talk about, what I read or played. It's usually a video game or whatever. I do use a star rating system, and so even now, me and my citizens are building bulwarks to hide behind when Dr. Philip Chase leads his crusade against our walls to stamp out star rating wherever he can find it. So, if I vanish, that's why I gotta go tend to a siege. So, 3 stars, boosh! My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. So I was not going to read this month, but Leanna and Mara from Books Like Woe and I had read Jamaica Inn together, and Leanna asked if we wanted to read My Cousin Rachel, but I didn't have space. I'm like, there ain't no way I can get it done. But then I saw that Jonathan Pryce, whom I know, or who you probably know as Governor Swan from the Pirates movies, but I first heard him in as Fagin in the Broadway revival of Oliver, and then a bunch of movies in the 90s. And I was like, Jonathan Pryce does his freaking narration. Heck yes, I'll read it. And so that's why I listened to it. Now, if you've been watching for a while, you know that I did not enjoy Jamaica Inn. Jamaica Inn is so boring. It's so boring. They're just on the moors, and there's fog. And that's the whole plot. The whole plot is fog and moors. And you think there's gonna be this, oh, what's the twist gonna be? Like, oh, what's the reveal gonna be? Because in Rebecca, which I liked way more, you're just waiting, like, what's gonna happen to find out what's really going on, and that was great. Like, Rebecca is a way better book than Jamaica Inn, but they make this big deal, and like in chapter 2, you learn it's like smugglers, and I'm like, is that it? Like, the reveal is that there's smugglers? Oh no! Heavens forfend! People are selling things illegally? No! And it's boring. Anyway, so My Cousin Rachel, I gave 3 stars to. I did not like it as much as Rebecca. But it is better than Jamaica Inn for sure. So this book is about a guy named Philip, a English noble, or at least rich guy, who lives with his uncle Ambrose, who is like 16 years older than him. And so Ambrose takes these trips to Italy every year. He summers in Italy, and Philip watches his estate. And this time he gets letters from Ambrose saying, "Oh my gosh, I've met this wonderful woman named Rachel, and you know her. She's our cousin." But it's not like it's like third cousin or something. They're tangentially related, but he keeps calling her your cousin Rachel, and it's just weird. Stop calling her that, because they're not really related. It's one of those, it's one of those bizarre things where everyone in the nobility is related, and she's still only related by marriage. Anyway, so he writes like, "Oh, I've fallen in love, and I've chosen to marry your cousin Rachel," and he gets married to her without asking Philip, and he's all super hurt about it. And so then he starts getting these weird letters that says, "Oh, Rachel, she's trying to poison me, and oh, this letter I only got out, I was able to smuggle it to the post," or whatever. Apparently she's, stopping him from sending out letters, and then Ambrose dies. And so Philip goes over to Italy to try to discover the truth, and he learns from Rachel's like friend, Mr. Rinaldi, who's this Italian guy who manages her affairs, that Ambrose had a brain tumor, and all these doctors say that he had a brain tumor, and that's why he was sending these things, and there's nothing to worry about. And so you're like, oh no, was it a brain tumor, or was Rachel really trying to kill Ambrose? And so eventually Rachel comes back to England and moves in to Ambrose's estate with Philip, and that's the book, is figuring out, did Rachel do it or not? And it's all there's this tension, and there is a lot of hemming and hawing in this. There's a lot of, what, no, why shouldn't I be able to give lessons in Italian? And it's just all very much ado about nothing. It's all, Philip's mustache goes, you mean? It flutters in the breeze as he, hems and haws. It's very British. But the mystery is good, and the ending is worth discussing. So I liked it. I did like it, and I was definitely on the edge trying to figure out what was going on. I thought Jonathan Pryce did a great job narrating. I enjoyed it. I will definitely read more du Maurier because I do like her writing style, her specificity and descriptions. She just really sucks you into place, and I really like that about du Maurier's writing, and something just about that whole era. Like, even though it's full of hemming and hawing and nothing happening, I just really like that time period. And so I will read more of du Maurier, but for now, Rebecca stands as my favorite of the 3 I've read. Next, at 3.5 stars, we have Boosh Sharps by K.J. Parker. So this is the third or this is, the second of the 3 KJ Parker books that I've read. And me and my friend Zara, who is also a prophet of Parker, we are, going to continue reading his works. And Parker isn't for everybody. He's just not. And this is my least favorite of the 3 Parker books that I've read. I read Folding Knife earlier this year, I think in July, earlier this year. And it was fantastic, and I still think about Bassa the Magnificent, the main character from that. And then after this, I read his novella, Purple and Black, which maybe is one of my favorite books this year, hands down. His novella was fantastic. Everything I love about Parker, just fantastic. And this one was a little harder to get through. This is a book that I would definitely not recommend as anyone's first Parker book. This is for the real true believers in Parker. This is a book that I appreciate, especially where everything was leading. I really appreciate the wrap-up. I love the things he did that are pretty standard Parker, but is definitely a challenge for anybody who is not committed. So I'm going to have a full review of this once I ever get around to fixing my backlog reviews. But in essence, this book is about a country, 2 nations, the East and the West and the East, that have been at war for like 40 years, and they finally have peace. And so the West sends its team of fencers and like their manager, like the national fencing team, over to the East to do like a peace tour and duel the best of the East, the best fencers of the East. And that's what it's about. And unlike Folding Knife and Purple and Black, this one has a bunch of characters. And I think it suffers for that because Basso is such a great character, and then Formio and Nico in Purple and Black are so good. None of these characters are particularly likable. There's this style that Parker has, where it has these cynical, kind of world-weary, but, dry and sardonic characters, and this kind of cynical worldview, and they're all here. And the things I like about it is it discusses stuff that's pretty standard Parker. It discusses the economies, how the economy of one affects another, how peace affects economies, how the bank does not have personhood, and so has to get agents to enact its will. And I love political intrigue. Like, political intrigue is one of my favorite things, political machinations and, scheme upon scheme in books. But this is some of the most dense political scheming that I've ever read in a book. If you like political intrigue, like if you like your political intrigue complex where you can't even unravel the blasted thing, then this is for you. Because it is so just scheme upon scheme buried inside another scheme that it was hard to figure. I could not figure out what the plan was until the end when everything's unraveled. And then the payoff was really good. I learned a ton about fencing. You can tell that KJ Parker was a fencer. Anytime he would use like fencing terms or stances, I would go look up a video so I could see the duels better. And so I really enjoyed that. And it asks some good questions in here, like how revolutions really get started and how rebellions oftentimes hinge on which side the army goes with. Like, does the army, stay with the main government or with the rebellion? Also, it has a really good portrayal of PTSD and people who have been through war and how they are carrying on their lives after they may have seen and done the unthinkable. There's a lot of imagery about flooding and birthright and, of course, imperialism. And so some of the themes that it explores, and the end when everything is revealed and laid bare, and the conclusion is really good. That's what kept it from being a 3-star read. But there's part in the middle where they're just touring and just kind of hanging out, and I struggled to see the purpose of it, and it was a little hard to get through. So I enjoyed this book. I'm going to read everything that Parker wrote because I love Parker. Parker is not for everybody. These dense political scheming and economic works are certainly not for everybody. But if you are on the Parker train, then you should read Sharps, but it is certainly not my favorite of the 3 I've read. So next at 4 stars, we have Boosh, Recursion by Blake Crouch. And so this was a patron pick for me. So every other month, I can't do every month. I wish I could. I'm trying to get to a point where I can. But I always have a read-along book going on my channel, and I can't have 2 books like locked down since I generally only read 4 a month. So I try to do this every other month. I let my patrons choose books, and I put it on a wheel, and then I spin it, and that's the book that I get. So this was Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative had put this on the wheel, and so I got this. And this month in December, I'm reading Theft of Swords, which was put on the wheel by my patron Samwise. And so Blake Crouch is actually my second Blake Crouch book. I read Dark Matter in June, also with Leslie, for the Shelf Space Book Club. And I like this one better than Dark Matter. I had heard that whichever one you read first is the one you like more, and I do see the similarities. People say they are similar. I do see that, but not as much as I thought it was going to be. This is better. I like this better than Dark Matter in pretty much every way. This is about there's a disease called false memory syndrome where these people are having these black and white but extremely vivid memories of a past life that is not true. Like, they didn't live that life, but it's as if they did. They feel as if they did, and that conflicting with their memories of their real life is causing a bunch of people to commit suicide. And there's this police detective Barry who is investigating it, and then there is a scientist that he comes into contact with, and together they try to unravel the mystery. And that is literally everything I can say without going into spoiler territory. I finished this book in like 2 days because Blake Crouch is infinitely readable. His prose is snappy and fast. Short sentences, fragments. You can very much visualize it in your head, and that's good because he's a screenwriter. And it feels like one of those disaster movies from the frickin' 90s, like Deep Impact or Armageddon or 2012, which didn't come out in the 90s, or Day After Tomorrow, or any of these like earth-ending movies. But if you're gonna go into reading Blake Crouch, you must suspend the really that you want to say, because so often in this book I wanted to go, really? Like, really? Is that what's happening here? Really? If you suspend that, these are fantastic. They go quickly. They pull you in. It is an action movie. It is, Michael Nipp and I were discussing it. Blake Crouch is a live-action anime writer because everything in this is so over the top. It's stuff that you could only do in freaking anime. And it has more endings than bloody Return of the King. I thought this book ended like 4 times before it finally did. And every time it ends, no, double down. And it gets even more ridiculous. But I really did enjoy it. The main characters are so much better than Jason from Dark Matter, who is supposed to be this Nobel Prize winning physicist and yet is an idiot. So I'm going to have a review of both of those, Dark Matter and Recursion, kind of together, talking more about them eventually. But I really enjoyed this. I'm hoping to read more Blake Crouch this next year, the Wayward Pine series, or anything else he's written, because it just goes so fast. And I don't ever regret reading them because it doesn't take a ton of time. And they are fun. There's just a bunch of threads that you don't want to tug on. But it is certainly a roller coaster ride, and I recommend Blake Crouch to anybody who wants a quick, exciting adventure read. Next, my first 5-star book of the month is Boosh, Blood of the Mantis by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is book 3 of the Shadow of the Apt series, and we read this as part of the August of the Apt read-along. And so I had a live show with Pete and Joe and Andrew about this book. I'll link it down there or up here, one of the two. And so I liked this book more than most people did. A lot of people felt like it was a side quest, that we weren't following like the main plot, and it was scattered. Like, it was kind of scattered all over the world, and our characters were not at the same place, and they weren't even just the lowlands like we had expected. But I thought that after the intense warfare that is Dragonfly Falling, I really enjoyed the more quiet, kind of infiltrative nature of this book, where it was a much smaller in scale story, and I enjoyed that. And the new places they went, I liked the new locales, I liked the new characters, I liked where it was going, and I like how it ended. Yeah, there's some weird pacing stuff, that's true, and some of the problems that exist in the first two don't change, but I definitely liked it more than most. There's just something about this series that really appeals to me. The characters and the world and the tech and just Tchaikovsky's writing style that just draws me in, and the global nature of this war. I can't talk too much about the plot because, it's the third book. But I just love everything about it. And though I see the problems that other people have with it, they don't bother me the same way that they bother other people. So it, I really enjoyed it. And I finished Salute the Dark since then. Really enjoyed that. I will keep going with the series, even though that appears to be a task that I will be doing. I will be doing mostly alone, which is sad. It's always lonely when you're reading books that other people aren't. But I love it, and I can't wait to finish the series. So next, my second 5-star read, and really this could easily have tied with my favorite book of the year. I could have easily done this one last. The only reason I didn't is because the first two in this series were my last book in the last two wrap-ups, and I wanted to do something different. And that is Boosh, Excalibur, Book 3 of the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. And you've heard me talk about these books. The Warlord Chronicles are absolutely fantastic. My favorite Arthur retelling by far, hands down. It's not even close. It's so freaking good. And I listen to these on audio, which I think it's the superior way to listen to this. This story is told from one of Arthur's close friends and warriors named Derval, only he's an old man now and missing a hand and serving this Christian bishop who is just this complete tool in the actual story. And he's telling the story of Arthur because the myth and the legend got blown out of proportion. And so he's talking about, he's trying to lay the story down as it happened, not as the world currently believes it. And that narrative structure really lends itself to the audio. And Jonathan Keeble, as I've said every time I talk about this, is a phenomenal narrator. He's just so good. He's so good that I think I'm going to try out the Saxon series. I don't really have a ton of interest in the Saxons because I love Jonathan Keeble so much. I really wish he did the Sharp books. Oh my gosh, it'd be perfect, but he doesn't. But Excalibur, this is the third book. We see how everything ends. It is at times heartbreaking, at times infuriating, at times triumphant, but always well written. It is exciting and keeps you on the edge of your seat. Cornwell is a master of describing, bringing us to this historical period, making these historical figures real and making us care about them and despising others. Like, we see what characters are left alive after the second book. Pretty much everything is wrapped up, and many things are wrapped up in a way that I didn't want them to be wrapped up. So, Lancelot's horrible in this series. Mordred's horrible in this series. Arthur is infuriating. Just infuriating. Arthur just doesn't make good decisions. Arthur, what are you doing? Oh, it's so good. It is so good. Cornwell just does a masterful job at wrapping up this story that he began with the Winter King. And if you are interested in historical fiction at all, or King Arthur at all, please do yourself a favor and pick up the Warlord Chronicles. I cannot speak highly enough about this series. I closed, and I finished it this month, and I already wish I could restart it. Like, I already want to listen to it on audio again. That's how much I loved it. So, before I go into my final book of the month, talk about what I was watching and playing, I haven't been watching much. I've been watching One Piece, trying to catch up. I'm at the good part of Whole Cake Island, like the back half, as opposed to the early half, trying to catch up because my brother is mean and he yells at me every time I haven't finished. And there's a bunch of stuff I'm going to be watching in December. I don't have Netflix, but there's a bunch of stuff on Netflix that I'm going to get it for December and watch, like Witcher Season 2, Money Heist Season 5. What a terrible name for a show, but I love Money Heist. Way of the Samurai. And I was going to watch Arcane, but now that everyone keeps telling me Arcane is the best thing I've ever seen ever in the history of ever, like, I don't want to watch anymore. Like, I'll be the judge of that, It's like too many people have talked about. Like, I was fine when it was just a few people, but now it's everyone, and now it's like my internal Schrodinger's hipster that I try to keep boxed in is like coming out. It's like, I don't want to watch that if everyone else thinks it's good, because y'all know, like, I only read crap that nobody likes. Like, I don't read anything that anybody actually reads. So I'm probably gonna watch it, but we'll see. So, but the video game I played, first of all, I finally, doing like one mission a day, platinumed the worst game of all time, and that is Assassin's Creed Unity. I've been playing this game since the summer. It is my least favorite gaming experience I've ever had. I have never enjoyed a game less. It's just so bad. Everything about it is bad. There's nothing, no redeeming qualities. The controls are bad. The story is bad. The setting is bad. Everything's bad. Nothing about it is fun. It's as if Ubisoft was like, you know what? What if we made Assassin's Creed, but made it the least fun possible? Like, what if we took everything that people like in games, like good controls, interesting stories, interesting settings, fun challenges or missions. What if we took all of that out and instead put 1 million collectibles on a map, had the combat and the controls be nonsensical and dumb, and have people with flintlock rifles be able to snipe you from 4 buildings away? Like, you can snipe you through a cloud of smoke. Like, what if we did that instead? It's the worst game I've ever played. Like, I'm so glad I'm done. I hate it so much. I hate it. So instead, I've been playing Trails of Cold Steel. I finished Trails of Cold Steel 1, which is the J-est of JRPGs. It is incredibly Japanese role-playing game. I'm not going to talk about video games this whole time, guys. Don't worry. So the short of it is Trails of Cold Steel is the first game in one of the sub-series of the games called Legend of Heroes. And what I love about this series of games is that it is a one story that is being told so far in 11 different installments. There are 11 games in the Legend of Heroes, and each series is broken up into geographic regions. So I played the first 2, the Trails of the Sky 1 and 2. I didn't play the third one on my PS Vita, and that takes place in a southern kingdom called Liberl, and it has, there's a storyline that goes on there, and it continues. And then one of the bad, like the Empire, the Erebonian Empire is like the bad guy in that series. But here in Trails of Cold Steel, you're Erebonian, like you're the good guys. And it's happening at the same time or right after the events of this game. So it's all taking place in the same world. And even in this game, events in this game are taking place in a different sub-series that is being localized in this coming year. Oh, nice. So everything's kind of happening at once, and it's all telling this huge story of friendship and political intrigue. And I was just taken in. Like, it is incredibly Japanese in where, it's very slow. It is a very slow burn. The concept behind this is you are playing a special class in this military academy. You're a bunch of teenagers, and you go on these field missions all around, and you don't really know what the point of them is. You see kind of, the provincial army's interfering here, and the capital's interfering here. And it all just seems very episodic until toward the end where everything starts tying together. And by the time that does, you are so invested in these characters. There's like 10 of you in the class. You're so invested in these characters with all this slow burn that it's a whirlwind to the end, and it just packs such a punch, the ending of this, because you are so attached to what is going on. It really does play the way an epic fantasy novel reads, because of this slow build, learning the world, learning the characters. And it helps that, unlike many JRPGs, the localization is fantastic. The dialogue reads well. It reads like normal people. It's clever. I love that every time time changes, like, the townspeople in the town that the academy is in have different things to say. And so you go around every time, like, it passes to a new day, and you talk to people, and their little storyline has advanced. Like, there's this one couple who always, in the morning, you always see them right outside their house being super public display of affection. And meanwhile, like, down the street at this other house, there's this couple that's fighting because the dad comes home and always demands to know immediately where his dinner is. And then as it goes on, you see he's staying at the inn because his wife kicked him out, is tired of listening to that. And there's this one, couple that you go to school with that are kind of will they, won't they, and you don't know why, that this guy won't return her affections, and you just follow them. And that's not usually interesting in RPGs. NPCs usually have one thing to say, and they don't ever change it. But here they change every time, and that's a lot of attention to detail. And so there's this larger story that you can find if you want. And that, coupled with the fact that the voice acting is top notch, which is not usually the case in JRPGs. Usually the English voice acting is the best you're gonna get is it's okay. I mean, it's fine. But usually, JRPG voice acting, the English track, feels like it was done in a room without the other actors, and it doesn't feel like the voice actor knows what's happening in the scene and how the scene is relevant to the story at large. And so they just won't emphasize things that the scene is clearly calling for. Like, if these two characters, like, don't like each other, and, you know, one is gonna say, like, they'll never let this person, they never think this person will understand. Like, normally it'll go, it's not like you'll understand. When it should be, it's not like you'd understand. And it's just like he's talking specifically to this person, not just generally. But here...
Well, I suppose it is what it is. I'll simply have to continue my training and challenge you again another time. And don't forget, I still wish to duel you as well.
Wait, why me? Honestly.
It's done so well. They read and speak like real people having conversations, and it's just phenomenal. And all of that, like, when I got to the end, first of all, I'm like, how can a game end like that? Are you freaking kidding me? Fortunately, I have all 3 games, lined up. I don't actually have to wait a year for the new ones to come out, but I was just like, what? And it was all very impactful because of the acting and the writing and the fact that I had built up an emotional relationship with these characters. If you like JRPGs, freaking play the Trails of games. So good. Oh, and the only thing good that came out of the fact that I had to record this 3 times, before I recorded this, I popped up on my home page of my YouTube, there's a freaking Japanese live-action stage musical. Of Trails of Cold Steel. What? It's bizarre, y'all. And so finally, my favorite book of the month was Boosh, Justice of Kings, by Richard Swan. And this is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf trilogy. And this was an arc very kindly given to me by Orbit in exchange for a review. And I am so glad. Like, I first saw this when my friend Abby got an arc of this, and I looked it up and saw what this was about, and it is everything that I love. Like, it is about a traveling magistrate named Conrad von Volt who comes and brings justice to the outskirts of this empire. And that just says, it screams greatcoats to me. And y'all know that I love me some greatcoats. And I have a full review of this filmed and coming out, but they told me to release it closer to release date, so that'll probably come out in the beginning of January. This novel is not told from the perspective of the magistrate. It's told from his 19-year-old female clerk named Helena. And Helena is a fantastic character. It's the narrative style is very similar to the Warlord Chronicles, where she's 70, and is recalling all this from the notes that she took when she was traveling with von Volt. And it is a fantastic story. It is exciting. There is a murder mystery at its heart. And von Volt is just this relic from a bygone era of when magistrates were really necessary. And just some of the questions that this asks is really what kept me going, is addressing things like the fragility of authority, governing with the consent of the people, can vengeance and justice coexist? What does justice mean? Like what are the costs of absolute morality versus moral relativism? And Conrad is von Volt's a fantastic character. Helena Swan writes a 19-year-old female really well. She does dumb teenage stuff. We're like, well, Helena, what are you doing? But she also feels very real, very, very fully realized and drawn, not flat at all. They travel around with the bodyguard, who's just this dour guy who likes to sing. And so the characters are great. There is a ton of political intrigue, clashes between faction, the role of the church that has been trivialized since the rise of the Sovan Empire. It is so, so good. If any of that sounds interesting to you, if you liked Greatcoats, if you like, even if you don't like Greatcoats, you don't have to like Greatcoats to like this. If you liked Winter King, if you like books that explore justice and the law and things like that, then this is absolutely for you. If any of that sounds interesting, by all means, please pre-order this book. This comes out February of next year, and if you want to wait till my review's out so I can tell you even more, that'll be out in January. It is a fantastic book. I had the pleasure of being able to talk to Richard Swan in like a publicity thing. I got to interview him and talk more about this book. It was so much fun. I am hoping to ask him to come on my channel and talk more about the book when it is published. So stay tuned for that. You know, we'll see. I gotta ask, I suppose. But it's so good. It's the best book I read this month and one of my favorites of the year. So guys, that is it for the books that I read in October. I am dreading signing off because I'm going to check this to make sure that nothing went wrong before I please let this have filmed. Guys, I'm not even going to bother asking what you read in October. If you've played the Trails games, you can tell me what you think. If you've read any of these, like, let me know what you thought about them. I am not going to wait so long to put out my November wrap-up. I got to get it together, guys. I have got to get my life together. But thank you guys so much for your patience. You guys are you're an amazing audience. I have incredible people in my Discord, and I have incredible patrons, and all you guys out there who watch and comment. Thank you so much. Guys, as always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys. Hopefully.